Welcome to Deal Freak number 3.
Woo!
Happy Thursday, which is your Friday, right?
It is our Friday.
Big Memorial weekend.
Exciting.
So exciting.
And you're both going somewhere fun.
Yep.
It's her birthday.
Yeah?
So.
My birthday. Gonna do some boating.
You're going to Austin?
No,
Where are you going?
I'm going to Chelan this weekend.
Chelan. Oh,
yeah.
the other trip's Austin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Austin
and
in June.
And you're going to Cancun.
Yeah. We'll play in Del Carmen, so
Good.
it's a little safer, I think.
All right.
I'm super excited. A little safer.
Safer.
I'm excited, but I'll carry
You're
my
not going to
ID
end up
with
in a
me
trunk
at
tied
all
up.
times in case something
Yeah.
happens. Then if I have my ID, then they'll be able to
I told
know
her
who
she
I
had
am.
to keep her ID on. No leaving the
Why
resort
does the ID help?
unattended.
What
So
is
that
it?
you can
identify my body.
identify her if she gets kidnapped.
Wouldn't the kidnapper literally like take the ID?
They might, but
Yeah.
they might not.
That's a good point. I don't know.
They
I was
always-
Maybe you should like
leaving the
maybe you
resort
should like
very much.
sharpie yourself somewhere. If
Yeah.
found,
Yeah, if found.
If found.
Please return.
please
to-
call my dad.
546.
You can put my phone number on there.
Oh, well, I'll be here working.
Sounds good.
You girls go have fun. Yeah.
Well, we
Oh.
appreciate
We
it.
will.
Yeah, all right. So we want to talk about a couple issues related to real estate today. And it seems funny because the headlines in Seattle keep talking about all the crime, all the issues. There was a funny thing that made national headlines, which was entire zip code in Seattle had no mail delivered.
I saw
Yeah.
that. It's crazy. Over 50,000 people have to have their mail held at the post office. They have to
Yeah.
go pick it up.
They refuse to deliver now.
Well, because the theft is so bad that it's like if you leave your package out, you don't know. Probably 50% of the time it's going to get stolen, which
Yeah.
is,
Yeah.
think about how that's costing businesses, how much money and us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it really trickles into our business, which is real estate, where people want to buy, where they want to live, the demographics of neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And those that aren't in Seattle, you know, we were on the national headlines during the COVID lockdown for complete takeover of the parks in Seattle and defunding of the police. And literally, it has gotten so bad that there are no police in Seattle.
None.
I mean, you don't even have to stop at stop signs, red lights. There's no patrols. There's nothing. And unfortunately, with all of our buildings, we get broken into every single week.
Yeah.
Every single week. And the police don't do anything about it. They don't even respond. They won't come. They just say, fill out something online. There's no investigation. And the thieves know it.
There's
Yeah.
no consequences.
No.
I mean,
So does that make you feel good living in the city?
No.
not at all.
All right.
Yeah.
But yet, everybody acts like everything's fine. Like,
That's
I mean,
true.
totally, they
Yeah.
do, and I felt safer before COVID started, for sure, but now I don't want to walk outside at night by myself, or like go into a parking lot at night in a shady area. There's been so many stabbings, carjackings, you just don't know what's going to happen, and it's so random that I just don't want to put myself in that situation.
Sure.
No, nobody can hang out. You can't even really hang out in the suburbs anymore now. Like,
And
it used to be just Seattle, and now it seems like it's getting further and further out, just
Going
trickling
everywhere.
out. And yeah, there's really no repercussions for anyone.
It's sad.
Yeah.
It's it's not the city I grew up in.
No.
The nature of it is there's still so much business that people still move here. But in our divisions where we're buying and selling apartment buildings, there is just every owner we talk to is like, I'm leaving Seattle.
don't
I'm
wanna
leaving
deal with
Seattle.
it.
They don't want to deal with it, and it's the high crime. And then you couple that with the tenants' rights, where basically you can no longer. In Seattle, people don't know this, but there's no such thing as a lease anymore. You do realize that.
I don't live in Seattle.
You don't?
So I
No?
don't.
Okay, but kind of in the state of Washington, the tenants' rights have gotten so out of control that once a tenant moves in, you can't get them out.
Oh.
Now, it doesn't seem logical if you
Mhm.
signed a 12-month lease at the end of your
That
12 months,
you have to
that's your
leave.
term.
Yep.
Nope, that's not what it means anymore.
Yeah.
And so the tenant, basically, once they're in, can stay in there for life if they want to.
And they're just saying basically you can't evict people, or
They changed it now, so it's essentially a just cause ordinance that even a lease does not terminate.
okay.
So, like, we had a property last year, the lease terminated. They said they were going to leave without issue. They were happy to leave, and they move out, and suddenly, they're like, nope,
Never
you owe us
mind.
money. Like, for what? Because you forced us to leave. We didn't force you to leave.
Your lease
You
was
said
up.
your lease was up. You were moving out.
Yeah.
So it's becoming so over the top that, and people don't quite understand this who aren't in investment property, but whether it's a duplex or a 20-unit apartment building, that is a business.
Yeah.
The business has value based on its income and expenses and its net operating income. And if you can't raise the rent and you can't do anything with the tenants and you can't improve the buildings, it's like rent-controlled cities. What happens in rent-controlled cities?
You can only raise it 10% every
You can't. You can hardly even raise it at all.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if you're an owner that can't raise the rent on your apartment building, do you fix it up?
No.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Just get
So
living
it
conditions
falls
get
into
worse.
disrepair. And
Yeah.
so that's the trade-off of rent control is, if you can't increase the value of the business, are you going to invest in the business?
Nope.
And
It's no money.
There's a socialist side of it. Well, tenants should get free rent or tenants shouldn't have to pay. Then
Who
what is
pays?
capitalism? If someone's trying to provide nice housing, affordable housing, a nice place to live, a safe environment, back to where we started, what incentive is there if you can't raise the rent, you can't fix up the property, you can't do anything to it, you can't increase the business at all, you're just going to set that business aside and not do anything.
Yeah.
Right.
And so that's why a lot of the people that we talk to are just fed up with Seattle.
Yeah. Would you say you think this is probably the biggest push of people moving out of Seattle since you've been here?
I wouldn't say it's the people moving out, because there's two different groups here. There's people that come here to live and work in residential housing, in private houses and apartments, and then there's business owners that own apartment buildings and commercial. And those are the ones that are simply saying, if you're going to control my business to the point that I can't have a say on how my business is operated, I'm going elsewhere.
Yeah.
And the government regulation is getting over the top. It's
For sure.
It's over
yeah.
the top.
and we were going to trickle in because, I look at current events, and the city council passed the tree ordinance this week, which means they're going to make it 10 times harder to develop.
Yeah.
10 times. Like, if there's any little tree, you can't remove it. Well, almost every property you buy has trees on it, even if they're small, even if they're in certain locations. And if it's prohibitive that you can't develop it, once again, now you're taking property out of the pool that could get higher density. So on one hand, they're screaming for higher density, more affordable housing. On the other hand, they're making it so onerous, so expensive, so ridiculous to develop that developers just go elsewhere.
Yeah.
And so what's that going to do? No more supply, no more new inventory, no new houses built. And so that really
Demand
becomes,
goes up even
it
more.
just accelerates. The cost is going to keep increasing.
Yeah.
So instead of making housing more affordable, they're making it more expensive.
Yeah.
Yet they're trying to provide more affordable housing for the people that are homeless too, but they are putting in all these laws that make it harder to provide affordable housing.
Well, and I mean, it's not just like free housing either. Someone pays for
I
it.
know,
Like,
I
if
mean,
you want to put the
somebody's
homeless
gotta
in
pay.
houses, someone has to pay
Well,
for
I mean,
it.
and in that scenario, you just stepped into it, which is, okay, you want to build 4 units, you're going to have to make one of the units affordable, or you're going to have to pay a mandatory housing assistance tax, which equates to about $120,000 to $180,000.
So is that for every property? That was 4 units in one of them. So is it 25% has to be affordable then?
There's ratios based on the unit counted numbers of what the mandatory assistance, and this is in city of Seattle.
Okay.
So if you're building multiple units, they're essentially saying you either have to provide affordable housing for 40 years. You have to put so many of your units into a jar that says they're affordable. And let's just say if you did the delta over 40 years, that could be $600,000 in lost income.
Okay.
Or alternatively, you could pay a tax right now, and that tax could be like $180,000. So as a developer, if you start putting the numbers and the pro forma together, and then you get to the tax is essentially your profit on the job. So then it doesn't line up.
Yeah.
So then what do?
You're not making any money.
You don't
You
build the
don't do
project.
it.
Yeah.
You don't do the project. You go back to
Numbers
the
don't
seller
work.
and say, you know what, this isn't going to pencil.
Yeah.
And so the taxes become so intense that development stops. And this is what people don't understand about Seattle or the other West Coast cities is the entitlement process, the regulation is so intense that you really have to be fucking insane to try and build in these cities.
Yeah.
Like, it is so hard. And I guarantee if you got in the car, if you got on a plane, flew to Texas, flew to Arizona, flew to any of the southern states, and walked into the planning department and said, hey, I got this piece of property, I want to build something, they would tell you, how can I help you? Go sit down.
Yeah.
You do that in Seattle, you don't get anybody.
6 months
You
later.
do 6 months till we'll even
1
talk
year
to
later.
you. 12 months till we can get your intake appointment.
3 years later.
3 years to maybe get a permit.
Yeah.
6 years if you want to build it.
Yep.
Okay, you walk into
And
Phoenix,
supplies.
they're probably going to say, how can we help you? They're encouraging development. One of my planners will meet right with you. It's an expedited process. I mean, when we were building Moses Lake, we were getting permits in 1 day.
So from
Yeah.
1 day.
to 6 years.
Yes, that is the difference
Crazy.
between government perception on trying to help. But, and this is where I think it's sarcasm or just what's the word?
Hypocritical.
Hypocritical. That they're screaming on TV, they're providing affordable housing and they're taxing billions of dollars to provide affordable housing. But at the same time, they're taxing those that build to do it as well, on top of all the home people that pay taxes
Yeah.
on their property taxes. And yet, the actual dollar cost to deliver that is insane.
Yeah.
I mean, what was the LA report? They're paying $300,000 a year per person for the homeless, and they're still on the street.
Yeah.
For $300,000,
Yeah.
you could give each person $100,000, and they could go rent on their own.
Mm-hmm. And if I'm paying that, I don't want to still be scared to walk down the streets.
Yeah.
Like, it's
Well,
crazy.
You like to get peed on, you know? Step
Every
in
once in a
poop.
while, but
Depends on the day.
It's
not
just-
by people I don't know.
I know, but we were driving and going to the property the other day to look at it, and as we drove by, I literally watched a guy squatting on the sidewalk, right in front of
Yeah.
a store, like in broad daylight, 11 a.m. But that's Seattle. Welcome to Seattle.
Yeah.
Right.
So, anything else you want to ask today? Come on. What's the good question you want to ask the deal freak? Will, what's a good question for the deal freaks?
We're kind of thinking about getting into the expansion in other cities and all of that. What does that look like for us compared to here? I mean, are we going to run into none of these issues in other cities or some of them? You know, why stay in Seattle if it's so hard to build, to acquire, to own?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, you're seeing people. I mean, I just heard that Seattle still was on the top list of where people are moving.
Yeah.
So the challenge with any demographic shift, and this is completely different from post-COVID, which was suddenly now this whole work from home thing allows lots of people to live in smaller towns. But for some reason, people are still attracted to the major cities where all the opportunity is.
Yeah.
And shall we say the culture and the sports and the restaurants and the events and you know, the reality is you can make $100,000 in Seattle in small town USA, might only make $48,000.
Yeah.
And so even though the costs are higher, you're like, well, there's more opportunity there, there's more positions, and that's why people go. And so we'll see it across the board. I mean, you know, it's just like now suddenly everybody in Austin is bitching that they're becoming LA,
I know.
right? Because
Right
all the
as
people
I'm
in
planning
LA
to move.
moved to Austin, and now, all those fucking problems that were in LA are now in Austin.
Mm-hmm.
And all the Austin people are like, fuck you,
Yeah.
go home, right? Because
Yep.
not only do they, you know, and that's just getting kind of political, but not only do they bring their personalities and what they want, they bring their political views, which if they're more left, will start to bring the same issues that erupted from where they left.
Else, yeah.
Right,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not, you know, which essentially a red town becomes purple.
Yeah.
And then it tries to tip blue. And so
Yeah.
and then with that comes what you just left, which was the political policy that restricts housing, that provides all these things for free, and then that's where the demographics change again.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know the solution. Other than go to Florida.
Okay, Florida.
Florida.
Are there any other cities or states that are similar to Seattle in the sense like you would never develop or build there?
San Francisco, Portland.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, besides.
I mean,
yeah,
they're
Portland,
the
I mean, Portland's
they're the
gotten
obvious.
rural.
Yeah, I mean, nobody wants to live in Portland.
No.
And you know, Portland makes Seattle look conservative in terms of just the anarchy of all the businesses that are closing.
And they were talking about passing like a trial period for a year where they would give homeless people $1,000 a month to spend. And then, like, seeing how the taxpayers felt about that, but just giving it to them on, like, a debit card and not for housing or anything. And
I want
$1,000
$1,000 a month.
The hard part that people don't...
for drugs. That's what it's for. I mean, like, most of the time, not all the time, but half the time it's like...
Right, but nobody seems to give a shit about the guy who, let's just say, has been living in Portland for 40 years. He's had his business on Main Street for 30 years. His whole life is there. His family's there. Everything's there. His employees are there for 20 years. And now he has to close the business because theft is so much, or the break-ins, or the homeless, and no one will go to his store. That affects hundreds of people beyond just the decision to let the guy shoot heroin in your front entry.
Yeah.
No, I know.
It's just a nightmare.
Yeah.
And so the poor guy either has to relocate his entire family and start over, or deal with it, or try and sell his business, which no one will buy his business now because of all the bullshit.
No one wants to deal.
It just spirals. And so then that neighborhood deteriorates.
Yeah.
And then that's a magnet for all the people that just come and say we can do whatever we want. I mean, it's getting goofy.
It is getting goofy. I don't know what the solution is.
All right. So you girls go have a great trip. I'm going to go to Florida and get the fuck away from this place.
All right.
Maybe when you get back, it'll say, sorry, fuck you.
Sorry.
I closed. I'm sick of Seattle.
Send
I'm
us
leaving.
a picture of
Going
you
to
Yeah.
Florida.
laying
I'm
If you
golfing every day.
want to come work in Florida, hook up.
I think I'll work in Florida.
I'd like that, actually. You should move.
We'll come.
All right. We'll talk again next week.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.